千里之行，始于足下。A journey of 1,000 miles begins beneath the feet. We now gather in the Tao to travel the journey together. Welcome to Tao Talks with Derek Lin, where we take a deep dive into the Tao Te Ching by Lao Tzu. As always, I want to extend my welcome to you. Thank you for joining us. I would like to invite you to center your thoughts and direct your attention to this moment in time, to the here and now, to be fully present and mindfully aware as we are ready ourselves for this sacred process in the Tao with one another. Previously, I mentioned this chapter title in Chinese, 3 characters as all other chapter titles of the Tao Te Ching, and easily translated. The first character, Guan, means detached observation. Second character, the one in the middle, Miao, is the essence of the Tao. It is the wonder of the Tao. To observe this essence, this wonder, means to examine and contemplate the dual nature of reality, the yin and yang of existence, and to ultimately realize that the two halves of complementary duality ultimately emerge from the emptiness of the void that is the Tao. So this is what is meant by observing this wondrous essence of the Tao. What does the chapter look like? Relatively short, 9 lines, which we were able to divide into 4 sections. Most of the sections, 1 to 3, are matching lines, couplets. And we started with the first section with the immortal line. The Tao that can be spoken is not the eternal Tao. It goes on to talk about the Tao being nameless, but also named. It then speaks to desires and being in the desireless state. Then we talked about the 2 that we have spoken of, nameless, named, desiring, desireless. These are complementary dualities that all have the same beginning. Hence, they emerge together. They differ in name. They're often thought of differently, but they have this ultimate unity at the heart of existence. That unity is said to be the mystery. This is what we emphasized last time. Not just any mystery, it is the ultimate mystery, or as Lao Tzu called it, this is the mystery of mysteries. This is the door to all wonders. And that's enough to let us know that this is the most crucial thing that we should all pay attention to. So a quick recap on our discussion previously. We started with the second half of our discussion in line 5 going on to line 6. Line 5 and 6, as you can see in this slide, are all about without desire, the desireless state, with desire, the desiring state. So I summarized all of that in this particular slide. And this is one of the most important concepts that we covered previously. This yin and yang duality, the interplay of the desiring state, which is yang, that's the one to the left, and the desireless state, yin, which is to the right. Let me note right here that these are not abstract ideas. These are real emotional states we actually experience every day. These are mental states that have a real and significant way in affecting how we see the world. And sometimes they affect how we fail to discern what's right in front of us. So, in other words, the extent of desires within us is directly linked to the clarity of our observation or perception. Hence, in this slide, in the desiring state, it talks about how materialistic desires result in materialistic views. When we put it like that, it just makes sense. In that state, one cannot look past the surface level. You just see the superficial appearance. Because of that, you trip over yourself. You have this mental blind spot. You cannot see with total clarity. The way to have that clarity is to be free of desires or to transcend desires. That is what enables detached observations. In daily situations, to be able to have that detached observation is what enables you to see the personal agendas, hidden motives, what people say behind closed doors, perhaps behind your back. When you have that understanding, you gain the ability to act in Wu Wei fashion, to act minimally, to achieve optimal results. So that's why this was one of the important concepts that we covered last time. And we also talked about Qing, the Tao of Tranquility. And we talked about this because the concept that we uncovered, the connection between desires and clarity of observation, this was common. This was a common concept that other traditions focused on as well. When Buddhism spread to ancient China, centuries after the time of Lao Tzu, this right here was an area of commonality. It immediately resonated with all the sages and scholars, regardless of the school of philosophy that they studied. And also, as I mentioned previously, in Buddhism, we have the concept of Guan Yin, which is the personification of mercy and compassion. Guan Yin observes the suffering of the world and resolves to provide assistance until all sentient beings are delivered from suffering. In the language of Buddhist teaching, it is said that until all sentient beings reach the shore of enlightenment. This is why in the Qing, which means the Clarity and Tranquility Classic, there's a whole chapter devoted to observing, specifically the observation of the empty essence of existence. This observation is possible when one is able to clear the mind of desires. In this particular slide, we went over the observation specifically of the body, the mind, and the myriad things. That observation, that clarity, that emptiness, these are things that those who practice meditation may recognize immediately. When you become adept in the meditative practice, you find that a benefit of the meditative state is when you experience what is known as the emptiness of emptiness in the mind. Let me say that again. It's the emptiness of emptiness in the mind. This is what leads to complete, absolute, total clarity. It's the kind of clarity that is far greater than any clear-minded thinking that one can attain in daily life out of the meditative state. And that's why it is important. We went on from there to talk about how these complementary dualities return to the one. This was the final and most important concept. Unity, in its most practical sense, the concept of unity applies to how the seemingly opposite aspects of life all end up serving the same purpose for us, the one purpose. So a way to express it is to say that whether things are good or bad in your life, they can all actually be good. This can be a rather puzzling statement until you take a deeper look at it and life itself. And this slide presents, I think, the easiest way to see it all at a glance. On the left-hand side, I list the negative things that can occur in life, including being abandoned, being betrayed, being attacked, being bullied, being mocked, stumbling along the way of the life journey. So naturally, we don't like the bad things that happen to us. In Buddhism, such negativity are dukkha, or suffering. The Tao recognizes that bad things are just one side of the coin. So there must be another side as well. Along with the negative that you see on the left, there must always be the positive on the right. Sometimes we don't see it, but it's there. All the problems you and I have ever experienced, just like all the problems that anyone has ever experienced, there is always something that can potentially make us better, stronger. There's got to be another side. But of course, if we're too busy wallowing in misery and self-pity, perhaps we don't ever flip the coin over to see that there's another side, the positive side that helps us grow. Here in this slide, I talk about learning how to be independent, learning to be more discerning, learning to be spiritually stronger, be able to protect yourself and others, learning to get back on your feet, to recover. So please note, by all of this, I am not making the simplistic point that everything is good no matter what. No matter what happens, it's a good thing. I think sometimes this distorted view of the real point, it can be twisted into sort of a denial of reality. What I'm really saying is that bad things can occur, and we need to use the mind that nature gave us to determine the good and the bad, to recognize when something disastrous has happened. Then, what we can do is to use the wisdom of the Tao to understand how we can use the bad for a good purpose. And simply put, that is the greater overall goal of learning from our mistakes. And the example that I used last time, if you recall, is cry in the dojo, laugh on the battlefield. You know that there's no easy time on the battlefield until you spend time in training. That is hard. Easy and hard are the two sides. It's the same in life, generally speaking. You can't learn the most valuable lessons without going through the school of hard knocks. And by the way, I am a certified graduate of that school. I think I may have that common with you. The school of hard knocks. We all belong to the alumni association of that school. Am I right? So our lives appear to be this roller coaster ride with a lot of ups and downs. When we have only superficial perception, we see that sometimes we catch the brakes, sometimes we do a face plant. It seems obvious we should divide them up, the ups and downs, into two categories: good luck, bad luck, good memories, bad memories, fortune, misfortune, light and darkness. So what I'm saying is that we generally think of life in that way, that yes, there were moments when I basked in the light, and there were periods of time when I went through darkness. Now, here comes Lao Tzu. Lao Tzu says, no, not two, one. No matter how you see it, everything that happens serves one purpose. And the purpose is to transform you from a stumbling novice in the journey of life to an increasingly seasoned traveler. Once your eyes are open to this truth, you begin to see it everywhere. The example I used last time was from the Platform Sutra from Zen Buddhism. You know, I remember when I first came across this, I was so surprised that it expressed the same idea, the same wisdom as the Tao, using almost identical words. And because of that, it is so valuable. Let me read it to you once again. In answering a question about the advanced study of Dharma, Huinen, the sixth patriarch, said, light and darkness, ordinary people see them as two things, while the wise realize their nature is not two, but one. This nature of not being two is the true nature. This true nature is not decreased in the ignorant, nor is it increased in the sage. It is not disturbed in an agitated state, nor is it inactive in a meditative state. It is not discontinued or constant. It does not arrive or depart. It is not in the middle, inside or outside. It is neither born nor extinguished. Its essence is always as it is. It is eternal and unchanging. It is called the Tao. That is from the Platform Sutra, and you see the original text to the left. Of course, there are certainly differences, different approaches in Zen teachings versus Tao teachings. But in this case, there is a total correspondence. What Huineng said was simply the Tao. That's it. It's a significant affirmation of wisdom about the true nature of reality, that it all goes back to the one, not two. So this is where we ended our discussion last time. It is a fitting place to wrap up the first chapter, because in this one slide, we bring together the two wisdom traditions of Tao and Zen using the imagery from both, and we point out their common origin. When you come right down to it, these wisdom traditions emerge from the accumulated wisdom of humanity. We can think of that as our spiritual ancestors. They came before us, and ultimately, they go back to the same source of oneness. And that is what is meant by this phrase from Buddhism that you see in this slide. All dharmas return to the one. The one is the unity. The unity is the mystery, because most people can only see the separation, but cannot see the commonality. To depict this, I offer the image at the bottom of this slide. You can see the hand-drawn symbol of the Zen to the left, and its counterpart of the Tao to the right. People perceive the difference of these two, but we are now in a position to look past the illusion of difference. We can perceive that at the underlying level of reality, the two are unified. So let me drive that home to be as clear and specific as I can be. Tao and Zen return to the one. What is the one? We can call it the wisdom of humanity. Nothing more, nothing less. Tao and Zen are not the only dharmas that return to the one. They're not the only manifestations of humanity that return to the one. This phrase that you see here, all dharmas return to the one, it applies to all complementary dualities. Now, I want to invite you to pause for a while to look at this moment in time. Let's all mentally take a step back right now and look at what we are doing in this moment. Let's reflect on ourselves. Most of us in this meeting are immersed in Western culture, and we come together here and now to study the most revered teachings from Eastern culture. That makes this a rather special gathering. But here's the point. Can everyone see the East-West complementary duality that describes all of us, this group, this meeting? If so, then the realization is that East and West within us are not in conflict, but they exist in a harmonious balance. These two, East and West, are also the dharmas that return to the One. Again, the wisdom of humanity. Lastly, let me ask everyone to think chronologically in terms of time. These teachings we discuss are incredibly ancient. After all, Lao Tzu and the Buddha, they lived about 2,500 years ago, and they each learned from sources that predated them by thousands of years. That's truly ancient. Now consider how you and I, right now, we're getting into these ancient teachings in modern times. We are using the latest in modern technology, the internet, high-speed connections, multimedia, online presentation, globally spanning network, video conferencing. Thus, can everybody see that ancient and modern are also forming a complementary duality of the yin and yang? The time periods separated by thousands of years ultimately return to the One. And that One is the timeless Tao, the Tao beyond time, or the Tao that, as we have learned in the very first line of this chapter, is eternal. This concludes our line-by-line discussion of Tao Te Ching, Chapter 1. Now, I think we are ready to go into the paraphrase and full circle segments in our conclusion of this chapter. Paraphrase of Chapter 1. Our purpose, as ever, is to demonstrate understanding by expressing the original using our words. Modern verbiage. In the first section, we start out with the famous lines from the Tao Te Ching. Can we depict that with modern vernacular? Here's what I would like to offer. The eternal Tao can never be completely described with spoken words or defined with written words. In order to understand it, you cannot rely on words at all. You must live it and feel it before you can really get it. We then go on to lines 3 and 4, the second section. This is all about the nameless and the named. Let me offer the following paraphrase. As the source of universal creation, the Tao was nameless since it existed before human language. We call it the Tao as a label of convenience, so we can refer to it as the beginning of everything, including life itself. Now let's move on to section 3. This is where we see the yin and yang duality of the desireless state, free of desires, and the desiring state, full of desires. So here is the paraphrase I would like to offer. We apply this duality of with and without everywhere. For instance, excessive desires obscure the truth, so we can only see the surface appearance. Being free of desires brings clarity, so we can gain insights into a situation and understand it better. Now, here we are in the final section of the first chapter. This is about the mystery of mysteries, the door to wonders, the ultimate teaching of Lao Tzu, presented at the very end of chapter 1. Here's what I would like to offer as the paraphrase. This does not mean we should eliminate all desires. Both the essence without desires and the manifestation of desires come from the Tao. Both must be integrated in life, just as all aspects of yin and yang should be integrated for balance and harmony. This is the most profound lesson of all. It is also the key understanding that leads to all the wonders of the Tao. That is the paraphrase for the first chapter. And let me bring everyone into the full circle discussion. In the last line of Tao Te Ching chapter 1, Lao Tzu talks about the mystery of mysteries, referencing the unity of yin and yang. We link this back to the beginning and see the immortal line about the Tao that can be spoken. Bring it back down, and the message is clear. The Tao we discuss, not the eternal Tao, and the Tao we live, experiencing the Tao itself. Ultimately, they are one and the same. Why would they be one and the same when Lao Tzu says that the Tao that can be spoken is not the eternal Tao? Well, it is pointing to the eternal Tao, but the intelligence that we use to have our discussion in the first place, that is a gift of nature. That comes from the Tao. So ultimately, our mind, the human intellect, comes from the ultimate source of the Tao as well. When you understand this notion, it literally opens the door to all kinds of realizations. For example, when you know the characteristics of something, anything, you can also figure out why it exhibits the surface level manifestations or appearance. In a similar way, you can figure out the essential truth of something, anything, by observing the surface level manifestations. Think about what happens when you meet someone. After a while, you get to know this person as an individual with a lot of depth. Then you can see why this person doesn't talk that much. He has a lot of depth. You understand the external manifestation because you understand his internal essence. That's one way to look at it. This is not an example that I just pulled out of thin air. This actually corresponds to a major point at the beginning of the next chapter. So, in a similar way, we can come at it from the other direction, that through experience, one can become an excellent, highly accurate judge of character. When you have that ability, you can interact with someone, observe them, look at the external outward appearance, mannerism, and be able to draw conclusions about this person that may not be obvious at all. In other words, looking at the external gives you the ability to understand the internal. That external appearance may be contrary to the way they present themselves, but the insights that you possess penetrates through the exterior. It lets you see the truth. So Lao Tzu is right. This is the realization that leads to all wonders. So I want to leave everyone with a quote from the end of this chapter. Mystery of mysteries, the door to all wonders. That, my friends, is the end of our discussion of chapter 1. Our meeting has come to an end, but the journey continues on. Until next time, may the Tao fill you with peace and happiness.